They made us laugh in the face of war and showed us the human side of those caught in chaos. But behind the camera, the lives of many MASH 1972 to 1983 cast members were marked by tragedy. While the series remains one of the most beloved and critically acclaimed shows in television history, not all of its stars enjoyed happy endings. Some faced heartbreaking personal struggles, others died suddenly and unexpectedly, and a few battled illness far from the spotlight. In this video, we take a closer look at the MASH actors who have tragically passed away, revealing the real-life sorrow behind the characters we grew to love. Their stories are moving, surprising, and unforgettable, just like the show itself. William Christopher was born on October 20, 1932, in Evanston, Illinois, and took on the role of Father Francis Mulcahy in MASH beginning in 1972 when he was 40 years old. Mulcahy's character was the gentle, compassionate chaplain of the 4077th, known for his unwavering moral compass, quiet strength, and deep empathy amid the horrors of war. Yet behind the scenes, Christopher's own life was far from serene. Raised in a family that concealed emotional struggles behind a veneer of normalcy, he often felt isolated, learning early to suppress his emotions rather than express them openly. His childhood was marked by subtle neglect and the pressure to conform, which planted seeds of deep insecurity. Professionally, Christopher endured many years of obscurity and minor roles before landing MASH, a breakthrough that brought steady work but not major fame or wealth compared to some co-stars. While he maintained a reputation free from scandal, those close to him whispered about his private battles with anxiety and depression, which he masked with his trademark gentle demeanor. Perhaps his greatest personal challenge was raising his son Ned, who was diagnosed with autism at a time when understanding and support were minimal. This responsibility consumed much of Christopher's later years, leading him and his wife to become outspoken advocates for autism awareness, co-authoring a book that offered an unvarnished look at the difficulties they faced. Though this advocacy brought respect, it also isolated the family socially and professionally at times, as Hollywood was not always receptive to such candid disclosures. His marriage to his wife Baldy was a complex partnership, deeply supportive, but also shadowed by long periods of stress and exhaustion from their caretaking roles. William Christopher died on December 31, 2016, in Pasadena, California, at age 84, after a battle with non-small cell lung cancer. At his passing, his net worth was estimated around $8 million, accumulated from decades of steady television roles, theater performances, and royalties, with much of his estate quietly managed to benefit causes close to his heart. David Ogden Sty was born on October 31, 1942, in Peoria, Illinois, and began his iconic role as Major Charles Emerson Winchester III in MASH in 1977 at 35 years old. Winchester's character was a refined, aristocratic surgeon from Boston, whose elitism, wit, and intellectual snobbery clashed hilariously yet compellingly with Hawkeye and BJ's irreverent humor. Unlike the buffoonish Frank Burns he replaced, Winchester was a complex, cultured adversary, elevating the show's dynamic with his sharp tongue and deep sense of pride in his surgical prowess. Off-screen, Steyer's life was a mixture of brilliance, turmoil, and quiet defiance. Raised in a conservative Midwestern family, he grappled with his sexual identity for decades, fearing that revealing he was gay would ruin his career, a fear not unfounded in Hollywood's past. He came out publicly only in 2009, explaining that societal changes made it safer but lamenting the years lost hiding who he was. His struggle with identity and acceptance fueled a deep emotional complexity that he brought to his acting. Colleagues recall Steyer's as intellectually brilliant but notoriously difficult on set. His temper flared unexpectedly, and he was infamous for skateboarding through studios and breaking set pieces out of frustration. His early years were marred by bouts of alcoholism and struggled to find steady work before MASH catapulted him into fame. After the show, he diversified into voice acting for Disney classics like Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas, proving his remarkable versatility. However, his personal life was less stable. He experienced several failed relationships and remained private about his family life. His later years were overshadowed by illness, culminating in his death on March 3, 2018, in Newport, Oregon, at age 75 from bladder cancer. Steyer's left behind an estate valued near $8 million, accumulated from decades of diverse roles in television, film, and theater, along with voice work. Wayne Rogers was born April 7, 1933, and embodied the role of Captain Trapper John McIntyre in MASH starting in 1972 at the age of 39. Trapper was the witty, charismatic, and rebellious surgeon who offered a playful but sharp counterbalance to Hawkeye's antics, quickly becoming a fan favorite. However, behind Rogers' charming smile was a man wrestling with complex personal and professional battles. Raised in Birmingham, Alabama, in a conservative household, he struggled against the expectations of conformity from an early age. His sudden exit from MASH after just 3 seasons sparked shockwaves. Officially, it was creative differences, but whispers of deep resentments toward Alan Alda's increasing creative control and disputes with producers painted a more bitter picture. Known for being fiercely intelligent yet stubborn, Rogers was often difficult to work with, sometimes clashing publicly with cast members and crew. Off-screen, he reinvented himself as a shrewd investor and financial commentator, a surprising pivot that brought him immense wealth, with an estimated net worth of $75 million at his death. Despite this financial success, his personal life was riddled with instability, multiple high-profile divorces marred by allegations of infidelity and emotional abuse, estranged relationships with his children, and persistent rumors of alcoholism and depression that he managed to keep hidden from public view. Wayne Rogers passed away on December 31, 2015, in Los Angeles due to complications from pneumonia at 82. His death marked the end of a complicated legacy, one that blended a celebrated television career with a shadowy undercurrent of personal struggles and silent sacrifices behind the scenes. Kelly Nakahara was born on January 16, 1948, in Honolulu, Hawaii, and took on the role of Lieutenant Kelly Yamato RN in MASH beginning in 1973 at the age of 25. Her character was a steady, compassionate presence amid the chaos of the Korean War setting, often quietly supporting the surgeons and nurses with a warmth that resonated deeply with audiences. Behind the scenes, however, Kelly's life was far from simple. Growing up in a military family in Hawaii, she experienced frequent relocations and the subtle alienation of being one of the few Asian Americans in predominantly white communities on the mainland. Her childhood was marked by feelings of invisibility and cultural isolation, compounded by economic hardships and emotional neglect that she never publicly disclosed. Early in her career, she faced the crushing reality of Hollywood's limited roles for Asian actresses. She was often typecast or sidelined, struggling for recognition beyond her recurring role on MASH. Though her public image was gentle and scandal-free, colleagues later revealed that Kelly was fiercely private, battling the loneliness and pressure of being a minority woman in the entertainment industry long before diversity became a talking point. Unlike many contemporaries, she avoided the trap of substance abuse or tabloid scandals, instead channeling her creative energy into watercolor painting, which blossomed into a serious vocation. Painting under her married name, Kelly Wallet, she held exhibitions in Pasadena and used her art to support charitable causes, quietly building a successful second career that brought her financial stability. Tragically, she kept her cancer diagnosis largely private, passing away on February 16, 2020, in Pasadena, California, at 72 years old. At her death, her net worth was estimated at around $10 million, a testament to her dual careers in acting and art, and her legacy lives on as a symbol of quiet resilience and understated talent in Hollywood's complex landscape. Larry Lynville was born on September 29, 1939, and took on the role of Major Frank Burns in MASH in 1972 at age 33. Frank Burns was a painfully inept and neurotic surgeon, characterized by his blind loyalty to military protocol, petty jealousy, and constant bumbling that made him the frequent target of ridicule by both his peers and audiences alike. Lynville's portrayal imbued Burns with a rare tragic depth, exposing the insecurities beneath the brash exterior. Behind the scenes, Lynville's life was steeped in quiet turmoil. Born into a fractured family, his childhood was marked by emotional neglect and poverty, forcing him to conceal vulnerability beneath a stoic front. Despite his early success on MASH, he was plagued by relentless typecasting, which shut many doors for more serious or varied roles. This professional stagnation fostered bitterness, and though Lynville avoided public scandal, industry insiders noted his struggles with alcohol and bouts of depressive withdrawal. Known to be difficult on set at times, his temper occasionally strained relationships with cast and crew, further isolating him. His personal life was no refuge. He endured several failed marriages, each ending amid accusations of infidelity and neglect. His relationships with his children grew strained, and rumors of estrangement circulated quietly. The darkest blows came with his deteriorating health, battling cancer and pneumonia in silence until his death on April 10, 2000, in New York City at age 60. At the time of his passing, Lynville's estate was modest, valued around $2 million, comprising mainly residuals and small real estate holdings. His death went largely unnoticed by mainstream media, but those who remember his iconic Frank Burns know the man behind the mask endured far more pain than his character ever revealed. Harry Morgan, born Harry Bratsburg on April 10, 1915, in Detroit, Michigan, joined MASH in 1974 at age 59 to portray Colonel Sherman T. Potter, a role that would define his legacy. Potter was the grizzled but warm-hearted commanding officer who brought order, discipline, and a dry, often sarcastic wit to the chaos of the surgical unit. However, Morgan's off-screen life was fraught with complexities and darker episodes that fans rarely saw. Growing up in a working-class family, he endured a difficult childhood marked by financial instability and strict, sometimes harsh parenting, which seeded a volatile temper that followed him throughout adulthood. Morgan was notorious in Hollywood for his difficult working relationships, often clashing with directors and co-stars over creative control. His penchant for manipulation behind the scenes, whether through power plays or cutting remarks, earned him a reputation as one of the more challenging actors to work with, earning grudging respect but also wariness. The most explosive scandal erupted in 1996, long after MASH ended, when Morgan was arrested on charges of domestic battery after a violent confrontation with his wife Barbara. The incident shocked many who remembered him as a kindly grandfather figure. Though the case was eventually dismissed following mandatory counseling, it cast a shadow over his personal reputation and exposed a side of Morgan few had imagined. His marriage was turbulent, marred by repeated cycles of conflict and reconciliation, and his relationship with his children was distant at best, with reports of estrangement and unresolved tensions. Morgan struggled with alcoholism and was known to drink heavily, especially in his later years, which affected his health and personal stability. After decades of hard work across film, television, and stage, Morgan died on December 7, 2011, in Los Angeles at 96 due to complications from pneumonia. Despite the turmoil, his net worth was approximately $10 million, accrued for a prolific career and savvy investments, though much of his estate became embroiled in family disputes that lingered after his death. Johnny Hamer was born on January 19, 1920, in St. Louis, Missouri, and joined MASH in 1974 at age 54, portraying Sergeant Zelmo Zale, the gruff and sarcastic supply sergeant whose frequent clashes with Corporal Klinger added sharp, realistic humor to the show's depiction of military life. Zale's character was not just comic relief but also a lens into the frustrating military bureaucracy, often embodying the petty annoyances soldiers endured. Despite his on-screen tough exterior, Johnny's early life was marked by economic hardship during the Great Depression, growing up in a working-class family struggling to make ends meet. This upbringing instilled in him a deep work ethic but also left scars from the relentless pressure to succeed in an unforgiving industry. His career was a series of steady but modest supporting roles, with notable voice work including roles in the Transformers and minor parts in acclaimed films like Annie Hall. Off-camera, Hamer was known for his professionalism but struggled privately with the frustrations of never breaking into leading roles. While he escaped major scandals or public controversies, Friend hinted at his battles with loneliness and occasional bouts of depression, perhaps fueled by the lack of wider recognition despite decades of perseverance. His personal life was quiet, with few public relationships and no children, leading some to speculate that the loneliness of Hollywood's fringe weighed heavily on him. Hamer passed away on November 18, 1989, in Los Angeles at 69 from cancer. His estate was modest, valued around $1 million, accumulated from a lifetime of supporting acting and voice roles. Despite the lack of glamour or headline scandals, his career reflected the often unseen struggles of character actors who toil for decades in the shadows of stardom. Alan Arbus, born February 15, 1918, took on the role of Major Sidney Friedman in 1973 at age 55, portraying the 4077th's insightful psychiatrist whose calm demeanor and dry humor offered much-needed relief from the horrors of war. Friedman's character became a fan favorite for his empathetic yet wry approach to helping soldiers cope with trauma, often acting as the moral compass within the chaotic camp. Alan's childhood was far from easy. Growing up in a working-class Jewish family in New York City, he faced early economic hardships and the pressure of living up to cultural expectations, which fueled his initial pursuit of visual art. Before acting, he was a highly successful fashion photographer, marrying the iconic and deeply troubled Diane Arbus, whose tragic suicide in 1971 devastated him and left lasting emotional scars. This trauma influenced Allen's pivot to acting, where he struggled with bouts of depression and reclusive tendencies. Despite his gentle public image, those close to him revealed he could be fiercely private and occasionally withdrawn, wrestling with the lingering effects of grief and loss. He faced no public scandals but reportedly battled personal demons related to mental health, a subject rarely discussed in Hollywood at the time. His second marriage to actress Marie-Claire Costello, while stable, was quietly overshadowed by his past tragedies. Allen died on April 19, 2013 at 95 in Los Angeles of congestive heart failure. His estate, estimated at around $3 million, included residual earnings from decades in fashion photography and television. His legacy is complex, a man whose understated screen presence masked a life touched deeply by tragedy and resilience. Eileen Saki was born on November 18, 1943, in Jerome, Arkansas, a town steeped in the painful history of Japanese-American internment during World War II, and joined the cast of MASH in 1976 at age 33, portraying Rosie, the feisty and beloved owner of Rosie's Bar. Saki's portrayal brought a compelling blend of warmth, sass, and resilience, perfectly capturing the spirit of a woman managing survival and community amid the chaos of war. She was the final and longest-running actress to play Rosie, becoming an iconic figure within the MASH universe and a symbol of strength for many fans. Off-screen, her life was marked by an extraordinary tenacity rooted in her childhood experiences. Growing up in a community grappling with racial prejudice and the scars of forced displacement, Saki internalized a fierce determination to overcome systemic barriers. Her boldness was legendary in Hollywood circles. She famously sneaked onto the Fox lot to directly ask for a role, an act that showcased both her courage and desperation in an industry that largely marginalized Asian American actresses. Despite her outgoing screen persona, Saki was intensely private, fiercely protective of her personal life, and little was publicly known about her relationships or struggles. Rumors circulated about difficult romantic relationships and bouts of loneliness, but she never publicly confirmed these accounts. Her career was steady but modest, often confined to small roles or commercials that reflected Hollywood's limited imagination regarding Asian female characters. The marginalization she faced fueled a lifelong battle against typecasting and invisibility, with few opportunities to break into larger, more varied roles. In later years, she battled pancreatic cancer, a struggle she kept largely out of the public eye. Eileen Saki died on May 1, 2023, in Los Angeles at the age of 79. At her death, her net worth was estimated at around $500,000, derived from decades of acting and commercial work but far from reflective of the true depth of her impact on representation in television. Judy Frell was born on May 11, 1938, in Quapaw, Oklahoma, and began her role as Nurse Abel on MASH in 1976 at the age of 38. Her character was noted for composed professionalism that quietly grounded many of the show's chaotic moments, though she remained a subtle presence rather than a central figure. Judy's real-life marriage to Mike Farrell, who played B.J. Honeycutt, added a fascinating layer to the show, with their off-screen relationship subtly reflected in their on-screen interactions. However, her early life was marked by a string of personal challenges, including a difficult childhood in rural Oklahoma where economic hardship and family struggles shadowed her formative years. While she maintained a calm exterior on screen, those close to her hinted at a quieter, more complex internal life, shaped by long-term emotional battles and the demands of balancing career and family. Her acting career, though steady, was often overshadowed by her husband's rising fame, and she faced the frustration of being typecast into minor roles, which eventually led her to transition into writing. Behind the scenes, her shift to scriptwriting was a way to reclaim creative control, contributing 13 episodes to the soap opera Port Charles, where her intelligence and wit shone. Despite a low-profile life free of scandals, whispers circulated in Hollywood circles about tense moments on set, including reported clashes with producers over storylines and her quiet but firm stance against certain network pressures. Judy's personal life also bore scars from a difficult 20-year marriage that ended in a highly private but painful divorce from Mike Farrell, with sources close to the couple revealing that their split was fueled by infidelity rumors and conflicting ambitions. Her later years were marked by declining health, culminating in her death from stroke complications on April 2, 2023, in Los Angeles at 84. At her passing, her estate was modest, estimated at around $1 million, a reflection of her dual careers and a life lived largely out of the tabloid spotlight but full of quiet resilience and understated influence behind the camera. John Orchard was born November 15, 1928, in Lambeth, London, and portrayed Captain Ugly John Black in the inaugural 1972 season of MASH at age 44. His character, a gruff and straightforward Australian anesthesiologist, injected a rugged authenticity to the show's medical staff, though his time on the series was brief. Orchard's early years were shadowed by a troubled family environment and post-war austerity, fostering a tough exterior that mirrored his often blunt characters. Trained at the prestigious Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, he entered acting with high hopes but encountered a rocky career, plagued by typecasting and intermittent work that hindered him from achieving leading man status. Off-camera, he gained a reputation for volatility. Fellow actors and crew recalled his unpredictable moods, occasional abrasiveness, and rumored heavy drinking. Though never publicly confirmed, whispers of behind-the-scenes conflicts with cast members and disputes over contracts hinted at a man difficult to work with. His personal life was no less turbulent. Multiple marriages ended amid accusations of infidelity and emotional cruelty, though Orchard managed to keep these details largely out of the press. The biggest professional blow came when he was abruptly cut from MASH after its first season, a move he took hard, reportedly spiraling into increased substance abuse. John Orchard died on November 3, 1995, in Beckenham, Kent, from complications related to alcoholism. His estate was modest, valued near $500,000, reflective of a career marked by steady but unspectacular roles and a personal life marred by unresolved struggles behind the scenes. McLean Stevenson was born on November 14, 1927, and stepped into the spotlight as Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake in the groundbreaking 1972 TV series MASH at age 45. His character was the quintessential flawed leader, bumbling yet endearing, a man overwhelmed by the absurdity and horror of war, but possessing a heart that deeply cared for his unit. Henry Blake's tragic, abrupt death on the show shocked millions, cementing the character as an unforgettable figure symbolizing the unpredictable cruelty of war. Behind the scenes, McLean's life was far from the lighthearted charm he portrayed. Raised in a middle-class family, he experienced a childhood of conventional pressures but with an undercurrent of emotional distance, which he rarely discussed publicly. Early in his career, he faced repeated rejection and obscurity, often typecast and struggling to break free from minor roles. His breakout as Henry Blake came as a surprise and a relief, but his impulsive decision to leave MASH in 1975 seeking bigger stardom proved catastrophic. He openly admitted that quitting was the biggest mistake of his life, as every project afterward, several sitcoms like The McLean Stevenson Show and In the Beginning, flopped spectacularly, leaving him professionally isolated. Colleagues whispered of his growing bitterness and occasional difficulties on set, describing him as charming yet increasingly difficult to work with. McLean struggled privately with bouts of depression, exacerbated by the shadow of his own career missteps. His personal life saw no major scandals but was marked by 2 divorces and strained relationships, with friends noting a man battling loneliness beneath his jovial exterior. In his later years, he suffered from bladder cancer, and while recovering from surgery, he died suddenly of a heart attack on February 15, 1996, at 68 in Los Angeles. Despite a respectable $6 million net worth accrued through acting, writing, and TV appearances, his financial legacy was modest compared to his cultural impact. Richard Lee Sung was born on August 14, 1930, in El Paso, Texas, and began his appearances on MASH in 1974 at age 44, portraying various Korean characters, most notably second Korean Kim Luke, across 11 episodes. Beyond the screen, Lee Sung was a vibrant and charismatic figure within Los Angeles' Chinatown, known affectionately as the sex symbol of Chinatown, a title that both intrigued and mystified those around him. His life off-camera was a complex tapestry woven from his cultural identity and his relentless effort to carve out a place for Asian American actors in a Hollywood that frequently relegated them to stereotypes and background roles. Growing up in mid-20th century America, Lee Sung endured cultural isolation, racial prejudice, and the erasure of Asian narratives in the entertainment industry. He used humor and charm as shields against these systemic barriers, building a reputation as a popular bartender and stand-up comic, roles that allowed him to connect deeply with community members while quietly wrestling with the limited scope Hollywood offered him. His dedication to the craft was evident in his serious study under Lynn Redgrave and his involvement with the East-West Players, a first Asian American theater organization, which aimed to challenge Hollywood's narrow casting practices. Despite his charisma and skill, Lee Sung was repeatedly typecast in minor or background roles that underscored Hollywood's unwillingness to elevate Asian actors to leading parts, a reality that fostered frustration and a sense of invisibility. Off-screen, he lived a flamboyant persona, yet few knew about his private struggles with maintaining a stable career and personal identity in a white-dominated industry. Though he had no known scandals, whispers among Hollywood insiders hinted at bouts of loneliness and the emotional toll of years spent fighting for recognition. His personal relationships were largely kept private, but he was said to be generous and well-liked among close friends. Lee Sung passed away quietly on August 16, 2021, just 2 days after his 91st birthday, leaving behind an estate valued at approximately $1 million. Roy Goldman was born on March 3, 1932, and entered the world of MASH in 1973 as Private Roy Goldman, portraying a corpsman and occasional military police officer at the age of 41. Though a minor and often background character, Goldman's presence was a quietly steady thread woven into the fabric of the show, helping to maintain its authentic military atmosphere. His role rarely drew focus, but it offered subtle comic relief and the essential support role of the camp's medical staff. Goldman's own life behind the camera was a stark contrast to the fleeting visibility of his character. Coming from a modest New York upbringing, he avoided the Hollywood limelight and the scandals that often accompany it, but his career was marked by persistent struggles for recognition. He was known within the industry more as a reliable stand-in for stars such as Mel Brooks and Harry Morgan than as a headline actor. This status meant steady, often uncredited work that paid the bills but never led to fame or financial security. In fact, Goldman quietly battled the frustration of limited roles and the precariousness of a career built largely on being the background guy, a fate many actors endure but few openly discuss. He stayed out of the tabloid scandals, keeping a professional distance from the often toxic celebrity culture. Though friends later revealed he sometimes wrestled with feelings of invisibility and underappreciation. Goldman's personal life was similarly low-key. He avoided the public eye and maintained relatively stable but private relationships, with no notorious affairs or family drama known publicly. His biggest personal battles came late in life when he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a cruel cancer that slowly diminished his health. He passed away on September 1, 2009, at age 77 in Santa Monica, California, leaving behind an estate valued around $500,000, modest compared to his long career's length but reflective of a man who never chased fame or fortune. Patricia Stevens was born on September 16, 1945, in Linden, New Jersey, and joined MASH at 29 in 1974. Portraying Lieutenant Baker, RN, in various nurse roles that embodied quiet competence and compassion amid the chaos of the Korean War setting. Stevens' characters, though less central, were vital in portraying the emotional and medical backbone of the 4077th, often assisting in surgeries and comforting the wounded, leaving a subtle but lasting impression on viewers. Behind the scenes, Stevens' early years were marked by a turbulent family life with a strict, emotionally distant mother and a father absent for most of her childhood, which fostered a resilience but also deep insecurity that she battled privately. Her transition from acting to education later in life masked a long struggle with self-worth in an industry obsessed with youth and beauty. Stevens' voice work as Velma Dinkley in the late 1970s showcased her versatility but never propelled her to major stardom, leading to professional frustrations she rarely aired publicly. She was known for a meticulous work ethic but had difficulties navigating the cutthroat entertainment industry, including rumors of strained relationships with casting directors and occasional being passed over for roles due to industry politics. Stevens also suffered silently from breast cancer, which she battled privately for years before succumbing on May 26, 2010, in Rutland, Massachusetts. Her net worth was a modest $500,000, reflecting a career that valued quality over quantity and a post-acting dedication to education where she inspired many through integrating arts into science and history. While she left no public scandals, her story reveals the quiet challenges and resilience of many women in Hollywood whose contributions often remain overshadowed. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from MASH who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.